All right, good evening. Wait a second. Okay, Jim's gone. I was like, wait a second. Good evening, everybody. We're going to begin here shortly. If you could turn your cell phones off or on silent, and council members, just ensure that your microphones are turned on. Officer Patron. I kind of like to know what's going on in the city. All right, today's February 12th. It is Monday, and it's 2024. Today's a regular legislative meeting for Barberton City Council. Before we begin our regular legislative meeting, though, we do have individual committee meetings this evening, and we'll start off with them. And first up is City Properties, Parks, and Recreation. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the City Properties, Parks, and Recreation Committee to order. It is Monday, February 12th, 2024, and the time is 6:03. We are in council chambers. The members of my committee who are present are myself as co-chair, Mrs. Hager, and President Greer. Not in attendance this evening is Mr. Cheatham, who is chair. All their council members are present, as well as others who are noted on my sheet. We have no requests for new legislation at this time. Are there any topics for miscellaneous discussion from the committee? From the body? From the gallery? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second.
This meeting is adjourned at 6:04 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart.
Welcome.
Next up is Public Welfare and Safety with Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the Public Welfare and Safety Committee to order. It's Monday, February 12th, 2024. Time is 6:04 p.m. We're in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including myself as chair. Ms. Gerhart, Mr. Greer, and Mr. Cheatham is absent today. We have no request for legislation, no pending, and I'll open it up for miscellaneous from my committee. Gallery? I'll just say the police department got their 4 Tahoes in. I think they came in last week. They're all decaled and waiting for radios and all that good stuff. And then thanks to the mayor and Mr. Tree for expediting the 4-way stop there at 31st and Eastern. That'll save some work. And that's all I have. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
We are adjourned at 6:06 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. All right, next up is Rules, Marketing, and Development. Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to bring the Rules, Marketing, and Development Committee to order. It is Monday, February 12th, 2024, and the time is 6:06 p.m. We are in council chambers. All members of my committee are present, including myself as chair, Mrs. Beck, Mr. Heidick, and President Greer. All their council members and others as noted on my sheet. We have no new requests for legislation at this time. We do have one piece of pending legislation, Ordinance 11-2024, which is titled Barberton Codified Ordinance Update. Did my committee have any remarks or questions about this? Does the body? Does the gallery? Are there any topics for miscellaneous discussion from the committee? From the body? From the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned at 6:07 p.m.
Thank you, Ms. Gerhart.
You're welcome.
Next up, City Utilities with Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities. I would like to call this meeting to order today, February 12th. We are in council chambers. The time is 6:08. All members of my committee are present, including myself, the chair, Jennifer Hager, Emily Beck, and Justin Greer. All others noted. Tonight we have no requests for legislation. Do we have any miscellaneous discussion from council, the gallery? Hearing none. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. David, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. We are adjourned at 6:09. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Last but not least, Finance and Personnel, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring the Finance and Personnel Committee to order. It is Monday, February 12th, 2024, 6:09 p.m. here in council chambers. All members of the committee are present, which includes myself as chair, Mr. Heidig, Mr. Griffin, and President Greer. All other council members, with the exception of Mr. Cheatham, are also present, and guests as noted on my sheet. We reserve requested legislation for committee of the whole evenings, so we will move on to the presentation and approval of the finance report for the month of January 2024. So Mr. Flaker.
All right, starting with the health insurance fund. For the month of January, we had just shy of $410,000 in revenues, just shy of $418,000 in expenditures, gave us an unexpended fund balance of $1,796,000. That's a net year-to-date of negative $7,929. Moving on to the income tax fund, our estimates for the month was just about 1.1 million. Actuals came in at a little over 1.4 million. A lot of that has to deal with a net profit tax that we received. It was an estimated payment of a net profit tax that came in. So I'm going to monitor it closely. It could, depending on how the year plays out, end up getting paid out back to the company because it was an estimate. So I'll monitor that, and I'm sure Rita will also keep me informed of it if we do have to pay out a large refund to the company. So we're over our estimates by about $348,000. We didn't do any transfers this past month. We will do a transfer this month. It will be the whole transfer that was in the temporary budget that was passed by council right at the end of the year last year. So we will do that transfer this month. Moving on to the statement of cash receipts and disbursements. The normal funds are in the negative. You have the FEMA fund, that's for the flood mitigation grants and the dam grant. The CDBG fund, that's the HUD grant. Both of those funds, once we pay out the money, we get the money back from the federal government. So we're in the process of having the POs taken out and paying out the money. So it's just a matter of once we pay it, we can seek reimbursement. The only other fund in the negative is Fund 661. It's the General Liability Loss Fund, and that's just in the negative due to the outstanding encumbrances there. We will get revenues to get into that fund to get it out of the negative. Comparing the last 3 months of activity, you have the general fund decreasing by about a little over 1.8 million. A lot of that has to do with no transfer again. That's basically three consecutive months with no transfer. Transfers will start here though, so that fund should start stabilizing where it's at, if not start increasing a little bit. Special revenue funds is up by about 1.6 million. Once again, we just didn't have any transfers this month, so that's why that one's up from the previous month. Enterprise funds went down slightly by about 330,000. All other funds went down by about 500,000. That just has to deal with the encumbrances outstanding. If you see there, the encumbrances outstanding in the month of January is over 800,000, whereas last month it was only 36,000. So we have $800,000 more in encumbrances, so that's bringing the unencumbered cash balance down. comparing January of last year to January of this year, the general fund's down by about $5 million. The special revenue funds are down about 3.6. A lot of that has to deal with the ARPA funds. Us spending the ARPA funds and that, so those dollars are going away. They'll eventually slowly go away, and we'll go back to where we normally were a few years back. So enterprise funds is down by about 1.1 million, well, almost 1.2. All other funds is up slightly by 36,000. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Director. Could you clarify on, like, when you're talking about the estimates? Sorry. Could you clarify about the estimates, how the estimates calculated when you're doing the formula? Because I had somebody ask, why are we always over on our actual, but we're never seeing an increase in it?
Yeah.
Type.
So our estimate, we base it upon a 10-year average. So we take the history of what we collect each month. We have an average for what we collect each month and a certain percentage. So we constantly update this 10-year average every single year. The thing that kind of skews it right now is we had income tax collection from CCA, so we have their history, and we have the income tax collection from RETA. One's more aggressive than the other. So the collection and the timing's a little bit different between the two agencies. So unfortunately, until we can start getting more and more RETA data in, we can come up with a better percentage. But you could also have these months where a business might be doing really well and they make a large estimate payment like we did this month. That throws that percentage off a little bit as well. So our estimate is whatever I come up with roughly what our revenue should be, our estimated revenues for income tax should be, which I will always put on the conservative side because I don't want to overestimate and then we don't collect as much as we should. So I will take what our estimated revenue is for the year, and then we will multiply it by that percentage for the month, and that's how we come up with our estimate. So,
Awesome. Thank you, Director.
any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions for Director Flaker, can I have a motion to call for this, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. In a second? Thank you. Those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, we have pending legislation. The first, authorizing payment to American Legal Publishing in the amount of $5,070.19. Are there any remarks for this legislation? We have another request to enter into contract with the Law Department Defender's Office of Summit County. This ordinance will authorize the law director to enter into a one-year contract with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County to provide legal representation to indigent persons in the amount of $210 per case. Are there any remarks regarding this legislation? Okay. Next, we have an authorization payment to Henshin and Associates in the amount of $5,740. Any remarks on that? Okay, and lastly, another authorization for payment to Henshin and Associates in the amount of $17,720. Any remarks? All right, I will open this up for miscellaneous discussion from the committee, from the body, from the gallery. Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:17.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That concludes our individual committee report, our committee meetings this evening. With no objection, I'd like to roll right into the regular legislative meeting. There we go. I was waiting for him. I hope he's leaving now. Should, good thing we waited. We'll take a short break, like 3-minute break, then we'll come back. Yeah. All righty. We're going to go ahead and get this show on the road. Just a reminder, if you, well, I guess a lot of you guys are police officers. I really can't tell them what to do. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, turn them off or on silent, please. And council members, if your microphones are turned off, please turn them on. All right, this is a regular legislative meeting of Barberton City Council. Today is Monday, February 12th, 2024. I call this meeting to order at 6:24 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Mrs. Hager. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, as you bring us together this evening, guide our minds so that our decisions are sound and just for the city of Barberton. Please protect our fire and police and all first responders and our military. With this we ask your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
President Greer.
Present.
Mr. Heidick.
Here.
Mrs. Thompson.
Here.
Mrs. Hager.
Here.
Mr. Cheatham is absent. Mr. Griffin.
Here.
Mrs. Beck.
Here.
Mrs. Gerhart.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here. Thank you, thank you. Next thing we're going to roll into is the presentation of the resolution to honor Shannon Davis. So where's she at? Oh, there she is.
She's hiding.
If we're going to read the resolution, and once it's complete, we'll call you up and to accept the award and speech time. Right?
No tears.
Resolution number 8-2024, title, Commendation Police Officer Shannon Davis. A resolution of the Council of the City of Barberton to honor and give public recognition to Shannon Davis for her 26 years of dedicated service to the City of Barberton Police Department and to this community. Whereas Shannon was hired as a police officer on July 14, 1997 by Chief Collins, Shannon worked patrol for several years and was noted for her attention to detail and efforts on behalf of crime victims. And whereas Shannon was assigned to the Detective Bureau in 1999 by Chief Kali, during her time in the Detective Bureau, she distinguished herself based on her expertise in child and sexual abuse, two of the most consuming, emotional, and mentally draining crimes. And whereas, when Barberton Middle School was opened its doors in 2011, Shannon was assigned by Chief Morber as the first middle school resource officer. Shannon taught her students physical and personal safety, being involved with Special Olympics locally, nationally, and on a state level, and became a resource and model for her students. Shannon was recognized by the school district with the Star Polisher Award in 2014 and was honored by her staff for saving the life of a student during an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. when a student suffered a cardiac arrest in 2017. And whereas Shannon has received many recognitions throughout her career, such as the Barberton Kiwanis Officer of the Year in 2004, Summit County Prosecutor's Top Cop of the Month 2005 and 2009, and the first recipient of the prestigious Summit County Children's Services Lieutenant Ed Duvall Detective of the Year Award in 2009. And whereas Shannon has served as the Barberton Police Department Citizens Academy Commander, forming an alliance between the community and the officers who serve and protect them, Shannon was selected and graduated from the 2017-2018 Class 23 of the Child and Family Leadership Exchange Program, CFLE. The year-long program, sponsored by the Summit County Children's Services, promotes excellence among leaders who represent children and their families. And whereas Shannon's latest service initiative was improving and raising awareness among members of the police department in areas of health and wellness. The program she has established will continue to grow and help other members of the police department address stressors and challenges that law enforcement encounters. And whereas Shannon wore her Barberton Police badge proudly and with unwavering, steadfast commitment to children and those with disabilities, Shannon gave full and complete dedication of her time and talents. She is a shining example of the best of what a police officer can be and the difference they can make. We have all been blessed and honored to have worked with you. May retirement and your next step in life be as fulfilling as this one has been. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Barberton, State of Ohio, Section 1, that the Council of the City of Barberton hereby honors and gives public recognition to Police Officer Shannon Davis for her 26 years of dedicated service to the Barberton Police Department and to this community. Section 2, that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this council concerning and relating to the passage of this ordinance were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees that resulted in such formal action were meetings open to the public and in compliance with the law. Section 3, that this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after the earliest period allowed by law. Passed unanimously, January 22nd, 2024. Yes. Come on, dear. Oh, God.
Save the best for last, right?
Youngest just at the middle school.
Okay.
So very, very happy to have you. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats. Welcome to the retirement world. Floor is yours.
Well, thank you, appreciate it. I always knew when I was in the 5th grade that I was going to be a police officer. I didn't know why, I didn't know how. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. My parents never told me no. They encouraged me, set me in the right direction to make all of it happen. And unfortunately, they passed away in 2022. So this goes for them. But I like to thank Barberton. I came from Cuyahoga Falls, suburban, nice, whatever Cuyahoga Falls was, and I came to Barberton, and I fell in love with the town. The people here are loyal, they're unique, and they're fascinating. And once they figured out that I was cool people, they let me into the club. I said there's no better place to work, and I was given plenty of opportunities. I could have done it without Matt Hudak, my mentor back in the Detective Bureau. I hugged on him and made him teach me everything he knew. I'll tell you, it took him only a day or two, but he's flying. And then Ken Cheatham was always a good support system for me. Another one of my mentors. And then Ed Duvall, before he passed, he taught several classes, and I just idolized him. And I would get in the elevator with him when I saw him and say, Dad, I'm going to be you someday. He's like, who are you? Can you stop? But again, I appreciate it. Thank you for all the opportunities. Thank you, Vince. Thank you for hiring me back. And I just have one flaw. I can't walk on water yet. And hopefully we don't have any more icy weather. Thank you.
Chief? Oh, I'm putting you on the spot, Chief. Chief?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, Jesus, right.
I could say so much. I never met a Mike I didn't like, or Shannon I didn't like. So we've been blessed that you worked here. We go back a long way, and so many ways, paths are similar, so you did your folks right. So that's cool. And all the families back here, you may not know, some of you, but you know, her brother Brian, she got one of the greatest blessings of Brian's life was he got to work with his sister for his career, so that's pretty cool. But Brian's a sergeant with us, and then there's Ted back there. And Ted, Apples and Trees, he stayed in the Falls, so he's a Falls officer, does great. Beth, gosh, good old Beth, you know, the oldest one, you know, she has to lead the way, so. But the whole family's here, and Shannon, you truly did give your all, your heart and soul, and we are all better because of it. So I am glad you're back. It's like having another detective back there, so you can't replace that institutional knowledge and your caring heart. So yeah, so thank you all, and thank you. So see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Chief. Does any council, you want to say anything? No. All right. Well, I won't make you stay, Shannon, if you don't want to. It's going to be a longer meeting today, so thank you for everything, and thank you to your family for sharing. Might want to hold up. There goes half the gallery.
Nobody wants to stay for budget talks.
That's like Cheetah might go down to visit the police station. He's sitting in, I'm like, what are you doing here?
I think it's better the second time around.
Man, she brought the whole force.
That's awesome.
Literally.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to resume our regular legislative meeting, and we will start with approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes for the regular legislative meeting held on Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes of the regular legislative meeting from Monday, January 22nd, 2024.
Thank you. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to second Mr. Heidick's motion to approve the minutes from Monday, January 22nd, 2024.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to approve the minutes of the regular legislative meeting held on Monday, January 22nd, 2024, as presented. Are there any remarks? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are adopted. Petitions and claims.
We have none.
Thank you. Matters requested.
They have all been dispersed.
Thank you. Citizens addressing council. Now, I do know we have two, but you're going to speak after the, I'm sorry, when we call for the reconsider. Right. Just wanted to make sure, because I have it up here, want to make sure you didn't want to say anything now. All right, so there are none. First reading of ordinances and resolutions.
Ordinance number 9-2024, presented by Mrs. Thompson. Title, Authorized Payment, American Legal Publishing. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay an invoice to American Legal Publishing in the amount of $5,070.19 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule is required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second Councilor Thompson's motion on suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
And Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for suspension carries. Motion to adopt, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 9-2024.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to adopt ordinance number 9-2024, or 2020, 24.
Yeah.
Sorry. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Thank you. Motion for adoption carries.
Ordinance number 10-2024, presented by Mrs. Thompson. Title, enter into contract, Law Department, Defender's Office of Summit County. An ordinance authorizing the law director to enter into a one-year contract with the Legal Defender's Office of Summit County to provide legal representation to indigent persons in the amount of $210 per case and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule is required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second Counselor Thompson's motion on suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for suspension carries. Motion to adopt, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 10-2024.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to adopt ordinance number 10-2024. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for adoption carries.
Ordinance number 11-2024, presented by Ms. Gerhart. Title, Barberton Codified Ordinance Update. An ordinance to approve the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances to provide for the adoption of new matter in the updated and revised codified ordinances, to repeal ordinances and resolutions in conflict therewith, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend, Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. And Mrs. Beck?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Motion was made by Mrs. Gerhart and seconded by Mrs. Beck to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for suspension carries. Motion to adopt, Ms. Gerhart.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 11-2024.
Thank you. Ms. Beck?
I second that.
Thank you. A motion was made by Ms. Gerhart and seconded by Mrs. Beck to adopt ordinance number 11-2024. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for adoption carries.
Ordinance number 12-2024, presented by Mrs. Thompson. Title, Authorized Payment, Pension and Associates. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay an invoice to Pension Associates in the amount of $5,740 and declaring an emergency.
Motion to suspend, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule is required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second Counselor Thompson's motion on suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and seconded by Mr. Heidick to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for suspension carries. Motion to adopt. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 12-2024.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and second by Mr. Heidick to adopt ordinance number 12-2024. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for adoption carries.
Ordinance number 13-2024 presented by Mrs. Thompson. Title, Authorized Payment, Pension and Associates. An ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay an invoice to Pension and Associates in the amount of $17,720 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Motion to suspend. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter be suspended.
Thank you. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second Counselor Thompson's motion on suspension.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and second by Mr. Heidick to suspend the rule as required by Section 5.10 of the Barberton City Charter. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
Motion for suspension carries. Motion to adopt. Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of ordinance number 13-2024.
Thank you. And Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will second the motion to adopt.
Thank you. A motion was made by Mrs. Thompson and second by Mr. Heidick to adopt ordinance number 13-2024. Are there any remarks? Clerk, please call the roll on adoption.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mrs. Hager?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Heidick?
Yes.
Mr. Cheatham is absent.
All right. Motion for adoption carries.
This ends the first reading.
Second reading of ordinances and resolutions.
We have none.
Third reading of ordinances and resolutions.
We have none.
Appointments.
We have none.
Miscellaneous and unfinished business. Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse Counselor Cheatham from tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to second Mr. Heidick's motion to excuse Mr. Cheatham tonight.
Awesome. The motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Thompson to excuse Councilman Cheatham from tonight's meeting, February 12th, 2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Councilman Cheatham is excused. I do have just a couple things here. February 19th, the city offices will be closed for President's Day, so our next meeting will be a committee of the whole meeting will be on Tuesday, February 20th. Next thing on the miscellaneous, I do want to bring up, just kind of give a backstory on this real quick. Some of the council members, you guys are following the liquor license that came through City Council, I believe it was November 27th, 2023, where ultimately City Council as the legislative body objected to the liquor license for Enchanted Square LLC. After talking to representation from there, I'd like to reconsider the decision that council made. So I'd like to motion to reconsider. I will need a second if anybody wants to.
Motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Beck. According to the reconsider rules, we don't need to take a vote when we will enter into discussion and debate on this topic. To help with the flow of this, council, our last council, had questions. The concerns were brought up to me by their representation that they weren't here to answer it. They were told that they didn't need to be here, and the way it played out, and then they felt that there was a conflict. So I will honor it because they weren't here, and it is a known business in town, and I'd like for them to be able to answer any questions that council may have regarding the liquor license. And for that, I'm going to give the floor over to anybody that has questions, but we do, if you guys would like to introduce yourself to the council, and then we'll just open a dialogue up between.
Do we speak from here? Do you want us to?
If you could step up here, please. So this is the representation and owner of the applicant.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Beisch. Attorney Lowry had a prior meeting with the City of Norton Council. So unfortunately, that was scheduled previously, so he had to go attend that moment. Otherwise, he'd be speaking here. I'm here with Susan Milan for Enchanted Square LLC. She had applied for a liquor license for her company, on behalf of her company. And unfortunately, November 27th, she wasn't able to be here, as Mr. Greer had stated, Councilman Greer had stated, due to various reasons, irregularities. And therefore, she was not able to address some of the concerns that were brought up by council. At the prior hearing, what had happened was the law department had advised Attorney Lowry that, you know, it wasn't necessary to be here, so we didn't show up. Basically, that's what happened. Councilman Jabar on that day disclosed that he had a conflict of interest on the voting. And if you review the video of that date, at 29 minutes, 24 seconds is when he stated that he had a business across the street and therefore he had a conflict with it and wouldn't be able to vote. However, he then stated that he was going to vote regardless of that conflict. And he stated that, again, at 38:56, he's going to vote even though he has a conflict because he brought up the objection. And frankly, that really didn't make a lot of sense to us. Because if you have conflict, you shouldn't be able to vote. It's the definition of a conflict of interest. You don't get to vote. Matter of fact, in the city charter, Article 1107 discusses the conflict of interest and not allowed to be doing so, which is, I guess, the reason we're having this reconsideration here today. It was also a violation of the ordinance of Barberton, Chapter 1320, which states that a member of any review body who knowingly has a direct or indirect interest in any question before that body shall disqualify himself or herself from voting thereupon. And although he stated he had a conflict, he didn't disqualify himself. So had he disqualified himself, it would have passed. But unfortunately, because he voted, it got sent down to the Liquor Control Board and all that sort of stuff, and the objection. Now, we have the reconsideration here today. If we don't do the voting today, we're going to be asking for a special meeting or something to that effect to take place prior to February 27th. Because if it is rescinded, if that objection is rescinded, then what will happen is the Liquor Control Board won't have to make a hearing on that. So we're going to ask for that to happen before then. What you need to know is that Ms. Milan, who's going to be speaking to you in a moment, she's operated her business since, I believe, 2008. And almost everyone in here, and all those people that left, all that police department, everyone eats there, the Enchanted Square. And she makes, you know, breakfast, desserts, all sorts of Lebanese food. It's delicious. She's usually open until 2 in the afternoon throughout the week, Monday through Friday. She's up on some Saturdays. And what she was looking to do is take over that other area, have a liquor license in order to facilitate some of the things that her customers have been asking for, which is to have evening meals and things such as that. And she wants to be able to, and she'll be able to better explain how she's going to do it. But to be able to facilitate those things for her customers that are asking, hey, can we get some stuff, you know, like the VDs, you know, so where we can have some meals with beers or wine or something like that. And she'll explain how she's going to do all of that. Another thing occurred was at the November 27th meeting, of 2023, Councilman Jaber has stated that he'd spoken with Milan about the upcoming hearing, the upcoming decision. And my client refutes that. She didn't have any notice of the hearing come up. She didn't know that she was supposed to be here. She didn't have an agenda or anything that presented to her that there would be a full hearing on it. So those are several of the different things that she wants to discuss tonight, but she'll better be able to discuss how she will present the food and what the business is about. One of the big issues that came up was underage consumption, and her business is going to be adamant about not being able to sell to underage people. She runs it. It's family owned. She's going to be on top of everything, and she'll be able to make sure that anyone who comes in there is of age and appropriate for the purchase or sale of any liquor or alcohol in that facility. Another issue that we did have was that no other parties in November 27th came forward to state an objection to her having a liquor license. Although Councilman Jaber said that he'd spoken to a lot of people and that he had constituents or whomever who said, hey, we don't want that, it wasn't presented. There was no presentation of anyone else coming forward and saying, hey, we don't want this to happen. Important to note is that there is a full approval of the chief of police, mayor, safety director. They're all behind her. They know her. They know the business. They're all behind her having the liquor license. They all know the client, and they make sure her ability to ensure that anyone who purchases there would be of age and be appropriate. So to that, I would ask that Ms. Milan be able to speak.
I know most of you, and I want to thank you for letting me come in and tell you what I want. I own the Enchanted Cafe, and I have many awards. I've been featured on Akron Life magazine. I've won Chili Awards, breakfast, lunch, coffee, clean bathrooms. I've won it all. I have no intentions of opening a convenience store. Since '08, I watched what happened over there. The kids, the Polar Pops, the mess. I'm not going to deal with that. What I want to do is piggyback the cafe over to the square. I want to have to-go meals. So say you get off work and you know it's Friday and I'm having ribs, barbecued ribs and chicken, baked potatoes, mashed, whatever you want. Come on through, get it. You want a wine, pick up your wine and go. I want to do, I've always been a caterer. I'll do some catering out of there. Maybe do around the world some nights where, being Lebanese, I'll have the grape leaves and kibbe and tabbouleh and the works on that. But I have no intentions, and it's hard to hear everybody talk about this wine and beer license because that's not what this business is. I want something unique to Barberton, something different. Closing at 2, I have a whole night for my customers that want the night business, and I think it would help too. I think it'll be busier, and I think it'll be every bit as high quality and special as my cafe. Some of the ideas, things have to be adjusted. I'm not doing the Polar Pops, I'm not selling cigarettes, I'm not selling lottery tickets. It's going to be piggyback off my cafe. One-stop shopping. Pop's gonna, not fountain. Iced tea, coffee to go. No fountain drinks, beer and wine to go. Iced tea to go. Open maybe 3 to 7, Thursday through Sunday. With an adjustment. It'll be bulk, pre-cooked, reheat, hot dinners, barbecue chicken and ribs, meatloafs, lasagna, stuffed cabbage, stuffed peppers, footlongs. My dad owned the Varsity, so I have his Varsity coney sauce and chili. I'll do soups, salads. You know, I'm going to utilize everything that's there, and it's not for beer and wine. That's not my intention. I'm not going to compete with any of that because I don't want to. I ran bars for a lot of years. I was manager. I was bartender. I did the food out of them, and it's somewhere I don't want to go. Just like with the kids, I do not want to deal with those young kids. So that's all I've got for you.
If anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
So, are you going to make those things in your restaurant,
Yes.
the Enchanted side, and then bring them over
Yes.
to the old Circle K? And then, are you also going to have any sort of is it going to be like a specialty sort of grocer as well, or is that whole space going to be like a
I haven't
deli?
decided if I'm going to go that deep.
Mhm.
I think I'm going to start with the food and see how that works.
Mhm.
Maybe on Friday nights or football games, we'll throw something else out there. Just to change it up. But beer and wine are not my top priority. It's just the convenience of the customer. Like I said, no cigarettes, no vapes or whatever, and no lottery.
And to that end, I do believe Ms. Malone is stating, she's not looking to make it a convenience store.
Right, right.
You know, so she's not looking to have anyone who comes in and just random people coming off the street to say, oh, I just need to get this at this moment. It's more for her customer base. Right now, she's got a great customer base. They come in every week and, you know, make regulars. Now they want to be able to do something in the evening, maybe having meals prepared for their family or something that they come, as she said, like on a football night. Hey, we can have everything prepared, go to our football game, come home, pick it up, and get the beer and wine with it. And that's what she's looking to do, not to sell randomly to just anyone off the street.
Is everybody familiar with the DeVitis reference that he made? Everybody knows what DeVitis is, right? Okay, just making sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. With it being so close to the schools, I can understand your vision, and I think it's great that you want to expand your hours and open that up. I could totally see Friday night football games, families going in there and getting something to eat. I was just curious if you've been in contact with the school board just to let them know this is what
The
my
liquor
plan is.
department did. They were out, I think, May 15th, and they sent them a notice, and we have not heard anything back from the school. I think they have 30 days to respond.
Okay. They do have quite a few new people on the school board, so just from my thought process, I think it might be a good idea to reach out to them and just let them know what your vision is. Although we do have a school board member sitting right here, you know, they don't all watch these videos live stream, so just a thought, I think.
Okay,
But
thank you.
yeah.
And that's important. It is next to a school, but you know that's something to be serious about. She's aware that underage children or any underage person, whether it's 21, you know, just about to be 20, anything of that effect, they can't purchase alcohol of any sort. And she's on top of that because it's her business, you know, and she doesn't want to have any sort of issue with that. There is another. I believe there's a drive-thru or something very near there, and there's other things around there that sell alcohol and that sort of stuff. They've been able to operate. They understand that, you know, hey, they can't sell to minors, and that's what the law is about. She wants to operate within the law. She doesn't want to be selling to underage children. Any other
In
questions?
fact, I might not even let them in.
Mr. Hyder?
Thank you, Mr. President. For clarification, this application is for a C-class license, correct?
C1, C2.
Okay, so you have no intentions of serving alcohol inside the restaurant whatsoever? Now, when you say with dinners to go, do you plan on packaging a combo type thing, this and let's say a slab of ribs and a 6-pack of beer? Because I don't believe that's allowed to, by liquor rules, to have any sort of promotion with alcohol and food as one price. Okay, and another concern I have was, it was said that nobody came and spoke. I believe, Mr. President, one citizen did come in and speak, citing, and the police chief isn't here, numerous violations.
Yeah, he's back.
Oh, is he?
He's right there.
Chief, oh.
You can't see him.
I thought you walked out. I apologize, Chief. Was that citizen correct in the amount of calls to that? She said over 200 to that location. Was she correct?
It was over
When
a
it was a
number of
Circle
years.
K?
What's that?
It was over a number of years.
Right. Over a
When it
number
was
of
a
years.
Circle K,
Yes.
you'd have to go through the call volume, which I have, but just in general, so you know, just because an address gets a call, right, doesn't mean that the call originated from there was problematic there. And Circle K ran a good business. I mean, yes, they had kids in there, and they, had fights and stuff at times, but we didn't have alcohol-related issues there. So, there could be a fight outside the Green Diamond, but it shouldn't attach to the Green Diamond or hurt you. You know what I mean? So, Circle K, Councilman Harris could probably tell you who wasn't. I don't recall it.
Yeah, to understand.
Gathering spot for kids, but so is right now, the skate park is, I mean, skate parks, they're scrapping at the skate park on a fairly regular basis, as they go down Harrington from, So, it was not a problem business. But again, I think, just in my thing too, Ms. Million's business is significantly different from what a Circle K was. And we won't approve it, because this came through in July, correct, Council Clerk? In July. I get a liquor license, council person gets a liquor thing, council clerk gets it, and say, hey, guys, I got any issues. So we always look and run, the calls there and see who owns it. There's a name on there, we run it, we see, and are they problematic? Because we know the liquor rules and how to object to it. And, basically the one that we always come up against as a police department is the one where we can say that it affects, the safety of the location established adversely, interferes with public decency, sobriety, peace, good order, neighborhood, and, orderly conduct of a public institution. And I don't believe that knowing the Chan Cafe business and talking to her about what she wanted to do would adversely affect that. So that's why I said, oh, no problem for us, no objection from the police department. So, and then it went on down the road and council and stuff, so. And that's the standard, that we have to prove when we go before liquor control. We have at times, when we've had problem places, we, object to it and we bring evidence of that issue, so. But I want to attach Circle K to this thing. That's, because it's just different at that time. But also know this legislative body every year, correct me, right? If liquor permits come up for renewal every single year, right? And so there's a letter that comes out to council and says, hey, if you guys got any liquor permits in your town you want to object to, let us know, right? So if someplace is close to a school and object, that would be the time to do it if there's problems or in the neighborhood and that things are happening. So, and we try to address and object as things present. Otherwise, we try to when I say we, I mean the police department, we let people be and run their business as they would choose to. So, to answer questions. Sorry, it was a little long-winded.
Thank you, Chief.
Got any more?
Thank you. You mentioned you were going to do kind of to-go things. What if somebody comes in off the street? The markup on alcohol is very great, and there's minimal markups that have to be done by the state, by state rules. Are you planning on turning down somebody that comes from, let's say, a basketball game on the way home and decides they want to get a case of beer? No food, just a case of beer. You're you do plan on turning them down? Because with the liquor license also, there's the right to refuse service.
Right.
And I'm just concerned that with the profit margin off of what, beer and especially wine, that it could be very enticing to, say somebody comes after a football game and it's fall, they want to go back to their house and have a bonfire and needs 2 cases of beer. Are you going to send them away without the beer?
I'll probably be closed if I'm only staying open till 7 or 8 at night. That's what Sean's gonna be for. My beer and wine isn't gonna be my big seller in there. It's the food. People who come in for food will have their option. I'll have milk, I'll have pop, I'll have chips. I mean, that's kinda asking me if someone comes in and wants potato chips, am I gonna say no?
Right, is that not permissible for a C1, C2, that she's not allowed to only sell the beer?
No, she can.
So alone?
I can sell beer.
Yeah, she would be able to sell,
Okay.
yeah, by itself. But when she was mentioning with packaging with food, that's why I was
Got you.
curious with that aspect of it.
Right, and Councilman Ida, and that's important. There are liquor rules, there are laws. She has to abide by those. She can't, associate them and discount them and all that sort of stuff. They're state owned. She's going to follow all of those laws and ordinances in order to sell these items. What she wants to do is sell these things ancillary to what she currently does now to enhance what she's doing for her customer base. Can she do it when she's open during those hours? Sure, she could. But if it's going to be a detriment to her sales, I'm sure it wouldn't be in her best interest to do so. So if she only has a few cases of beer, set aside for what she's going to be doing, why sell it to the people that are coming in off the street when she's got it set up for her sales for regular customers? Does that make sense?
Any other questions? Would you guys like to add? Well, Mr. Shorter?
You're stating you're gonna close at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
My restaurant closes
The
at 2.
restaurant, okay.
And the building sits right next door.
What's gonna stop me from coming in there, whatever, 1:30 or whatever, and telling y'all want some liquor to go? And I don't want food, I don't want chips, all I want is a couple 6-packs or whatever. You wanna remove them?
I would have to see what the liquor, I mean, I feel I'm allowed to sell it with a C1, C2, but that's not why I'm gonna have it. I won't refuse you, but I don't think people are gonna come in there for that. I think they know that the drive-through is for that. Across the street.
Why not?
Well, and frankly, Councilman, that would be your prerogative. If you wanted to go in there because she's a great person,
Yeah, I don't wanna
you want to
go there.
purchase from
Yeah, I don't
her,
wanna go through the drive-thru.
well, that would be your prerogative, and she would be able to sell if that license was approved. But just because she's allowed to sell it, doesn't mean that she shouldn't have a license to do so. I mean, why couldn't you just take that prerogative and go across the street to the drive-thru, or go down the street to another place that serves the alcohol? Wherever you want to purchase, yours is up to you. If she's allowed to sell it and it's legal, then it shouldn't be a detriment to her to have a license to do so.
Mr. Hager? Mr. Sager?
I'm just gonna put my 2 cents in here. I think we're kind of like throwing this out of proportion. She owns a restaurant. And we're kind of turning this into like if you would walk into Olive Garden and say, I want to buy a 6-pack of beer. She is providing alcohol the same way as she would be providing if you buy a to-go meal, you can purchase a pop with it, or you can purchase a beer with it, or you can purchase wine with it. She's not advertising herself as a place where you can go and buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack or a case or whatever. And so I honestly, knowing her restaurant, I don't see people all of a sudden, people off the street walking in and, hey, can you sell me a case of Budweiser? I think people are going to realize that she's selling meals, and if you would like, you can have a beer to go with your meal or a wine to go with your meal. And like she said, Rocky's is right across the street. If you want to go get a 6-pack or a 12-pack, that's where you go to get that. Like I said, it would be like, you know, going to any restaurant that serves alcohol and, hey, can I get a 12-pack to go? They're going to look at you like you're nuts. You know, and they're going to say, absolutely not. That's not how we do this. You purchase, I mean, now restaurants, you know, they don't usually sell to go. I mean, they did, some places did through the pandemic, but restaurants, you know, they're going to say, no, you can't come in here and buy a 6-pack. You can purchase something with a meal, but you can't just come in here and buy a 6-pack of beer. And I think that's what she's trying to explain, is she wants it to be as a restaurant, a to-go restaurant, but still as a restaurant. And her main purpose is not to just allow beer sales or wine sales.
Thank you, Mr. Tager. We're running up on a half an hour on this thing. This is not a trial. They're here to provide information. Is there any questions that will determine your decision that can be asked? Mr. Heidick, I'll give it to you.
I just wanted to clarify to Counselor Hager there. Yes, I will put this out there. Yes, a bar will sell you a 6-pack to go, and because of the liquor rules, we have to charge for those individually, which no bar is going to tell you, we're not going to sell you a 6-pack when we have to sell to you at our individual prices. That would be completely asinine of us to not make that kind of markup. And that leads to that point of the ability is there, how far does the ability go? Once you see a certain profit, does the ability to expand, when you have that, how enticing is that? But I just wanted to clear up that bars will sell to go, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr.
President.
Heidick. Is there any other questions? I'm sorry.
You had one.
Oh, the question, I think I was going to piggyback off of what she said, just a little bit. I had a rebuttal or whatever. She said, nobody's going to come in there. You know, I know your intentions. You have good intentions, okay? So what's going to happen when I come in there, like Mr. Heidick, if I walk into the Green Diamond and I want a 6-pack, he's going to sell me a 6-pack of beer.
And it'll cost you 3 times
And it's
as
going to cost
much.
you, say,
It's
you
cost
don't
prohibitive
care.
for somebody to do that.
Money don't bother me. I want to pay it. Maybe I don't want to go across the street from Rocky. Maybe I don't like you. So I want to go in here, pay the money and walk out. So what's stopping me from doing it?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay.
Absolutely nothing, sir.
How often does that happen at the Green Diamond? Is that like something that happens commonly, that people will come and buy a
You'd be
6-pack
surprised-
from you?
You'd be surprised how many people buy to-go beers at bars.
Okay.
And those bars
Is-
make a good profit.
Is,
Yes.
well, right, is
And they're
that
good business in the area.
Yes.
frowned upon? It's cost prohibitive for the person to do that, but I can also waste my money on other things too.
I can tell you, and this has nothing to do with this, but the main purpose that bars do that are ones that sell from till 2:30, because C-class licenses shut down at 1, so that hour-and-a-half window, they're able to buy to go.
I understand what you're saying.
All right, I feel like everybody got everything out of their system. I do appreciate the long discussion.
One more thing.
Thank-
I'm a 5-star restaurant on Yelp, and I have no intentions of opening up anything else that's not a 5-star. Okay? I want something unique, something different, something that isn't typical. Swing by after work.
Baklava and a beer.
Yeah, the baklava and a beer. That's what I'm really known for.
Stuffed cabbage, you got me at stuffed cabbage.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. I do want to thank you guys for coming in and explaining that. With the motion to reconsider, there is no votes that needed for the discussion. However, I do want to clarify things. This is a new vote. This will determine if we void out the other one when we send in an updated thing to the state. How this works is I'm going to ask if there's anybody that objects. If there's one person that objects, I believe that their point has already been made, but they'll give them an opportunity to state their point. and with no objection, or to state their point. I believe we had enough discussion, so we'll leave it at that, and then we'll move forward. If there is no objections from council, then the council will just be no objections, and we'll send an updated letter to the state to state that we have updated, we did a motion to reconsider, and the choice has been updated. So with that said, does any member of council object to this liquor license? Mr. Haddock, I'll give you just real quick to make a final statement. Mr. Shorter. I'll give you guys one last final statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. We already have one operating establishment that sells alcohol within confines of the schools. Number one, there's a high school, and number two, there's a middle school. Where do we stop if we keep allowing more alcohol next to schools? Look at the elementary school formerly known as UL Light Middle School. There's shops next door. Should we allow bars and just anything we want there, for one? Number two, as they stated, there's a skate park also down the street. Do we not object to having parks by there? There was I spoke at a liquor hearing for a convenience store application on Snyder Avenue, and there was a concern that there was a park nearby, and AMHA, which is surrounded by an iron gate. Are we saying that the AMHA in a small college park is more in tune than to have a school full of high school students and a school full of middle school students? And I know the city's position on that. Like I said, I was part of the meeting, so don't need to recap that, but that was my opinion then, and my opinion still stands today. Thank you.
Mr. Shorter, I'll give you...
Yes, Mr. President, I voted no before, and I'm not going to change today. My reason is the schools right there. Somewhere along the line, you're going to have something that's tangible with the footage or something. How close can we go? There's nothing that says, okay, we can go on 500 feet, just like you said, the middle school. You got all the children here. So where are you going to stop at? You're just going to keep going because of this discretion? Well, I like these people. Oh, I like them too. But I'm for order. I'm for something that I can say, okay, this is 500 feet above. Okay, and I'm with Mr. Heidick on the Snyder Avenue. There's a park there that nobody uses. There's a AMH housing that's surrounded by iron gates. The problems that existed there were years ago. So if we're going to have it in the future, it's all problematic. So you're going to turn it down because it may happen in the future. But here, we can stop this now because there is a school there. And I don't want another beer liquor license or whatever within certain footage of school. I know she has good intentions. I do too. And that's the way I feel.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. All right, we're just going to do a simple vote. All those in favor of objecting to this liquor license, please raise your hand. All right, 2. There's no need to continue any further. There's not enough votes to object. We need 4 in a sitting of 7. Council will send an updated response to Columbus, and we'll just move from there. All right. Next order of business on miscellaneous. We needed a place to put the budget talks, so we're going to roll right into the budget. Budget talks with the mayor. So, Mayor, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. So, over the next few weeks, we'll have several departments that will present their budget. So we're not going to go through every single fund, but we'll hit the major ones. Like I said before, people will present, and then maybe the next day or a week later or a couple weeks later, we're going to have questions. Feel free to send those to us. So tonight, I'm going to go over my office. I'll go city council budget, human resources, safety, civil service, finance, service director, and law. And then we'll dive a little deeper into things over the next few weeks. So with any questions that you have, please start with the page number, and then we can go to the specific line item.
Real quick, I'm so sorry. Can we take like 2 minutes before we dig into this?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Sorry, I know it's late.
3 minutes.
also
want
grab a
to
bag
go
of
on
chips
that
and maybe some
trip.
water
Thanks,
and
Lisa.
dip, and now I've just
Appreciate
stopped one place on my way home.
Really?
Instead of 3.
I really I love that.
So where we start?
I don't know.
All right, we are now off break. Mayor, I do have a favor. If we could, was legal on that? Would we be able to start with legal?
No. I'm not sure what page that is.
Yeah.
54, what tab?
Page 54 on tab 4. Yeah.
Councilman Heideck had called earlier today. He had just a couple of questions, and I was able to answer them. One was an increase in the professional services, and that is a reflection of the appeal costs for the jail, ongoing jail litigation. And then the public defender, I think that was the other question. No, I'm sorry.
That was the indictment program.
Oh, the direct indictment program, and that's because that's the cost of 2 years, over 2 years. That's the previous year's cost and then this year's cost. So those were the 2 questions he had, and I answered those. So other than that, I doubt that there's any cost fluctuation. All of the public defender costs I've given you guys that, well, not all of you because all of you haven't been here, but I did have an Excel spreadsheet that would show the fluctuation over time, over 10 years. There's absolutely zero predictability in the cost of the public defender, and I can't explain it. I offer no explanation. I can't explain it. Jeremy, can you explain it? He's sleeping, so he can't explain it either. I don't understand it. It goes up 30%, then down 40%, then up 10%, then down. I don't know. I do my best.
Is that just maybe because of the amount of cases?
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Their billing is really weird. Andrea Whitaker's taken over in the last 2 years, and she has explained that they've had some issues with billing, and she has promised to rectify that. And she's been an absolute incredible person to work with, so I'm hoping that rectifies.
Any questions?
The 2 I had highlighted were what you already asked, so that
So-
gave me my answer.
All right. If there's any other questions, you can forward those to the mayor's office or Mrs. Miller's office.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller.
I literally don't, but thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting us do that first.
And thank you for the break.
All right, my budget's on page 50. Tab 4, page 50. I believe all the budgets today will be under tab 4. The personnel expenses are there. Not much change with those. Under the operation and maintenance, you can see what's been spent, what was budgeted, what's been spent in the past, what was budgeted in '23, and spent in �23, and then in '24. There's always conferences that are out of town. Sometimes go to DC at times to meet with legislators. We go to Columbus several times a year to meet with legislators as well. Meet with HUD and other reps that are down in the state, in the capital there. Professional services, copy release, all that's pretty standard there.
Thank you, Mayor. Not everybody may know, but under mayor's salary at $39,150, This goes for other directors as well. Do you want to elaborate how a salary can be pulled from different places instead of one hit against the general fund?
Yeah, so most employees are paid out of, maybe not most, many employees are paid out of multiple funds depending on what job they do, right? So we heard from the law director, she obviously does work for every department, right? So we have multiple funds, and by law, you're allowed to pull money out for the percentage of work that she does, or that I do, or whoever does, out of the utility funds, or from general fund, or what have you, right? So that's why you'll see salaries in a specific budget that are lower than what that person actually makes. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Mayor, what about the, under the administrative coordinator, over from 20 to 2022, and then the drastic increase?
Yeah, so we had another coordinator start last year. So the service director has a coordinator as well. That position is not filled. So we thought that, we had 2 mayor's coordinators, but they work simultaneously for the mayor and service director. So Emma started last year mid-year.
So are you still looking to hire another coordinator?
No.
Okay.
It's been a while since that specific position has been filled. Plus, we don't have the room for another person. Any other questions on that budget? Okay. If you back up one page to page 49 real quick, is your budget. City council. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it's not. Two pages there. To 47, page 47.
Yeah.
So that's budget here for city council, so it has your salaries, has the clerk's salary, any insurance there or benefits, and then the money that's there for the telephone and training and travel, professional services. You can see as you approve today, the codified ordinances. So I talked to Lori about that number, what's been spent in the past, and if you get further away from where we are today, older, the cost was greater in other years. So there's years when there's a high cost to update the codified ordinances. We want to be prepared for that cost. So, in my day, everybody got a copy of the big book, right? You had to lug that around and you had to change it out. So, it's been modernized quite a bit. So, that's the biggest change in the budget here. Yes.
Does that extra or above 16,000 there, is that projecting the new development code? What kind of work Am Legal is going to have to do with that?
I believe this is just for the company to put everything together.
This is for the printed versions and the online
Yes.
changes? So this
That
is-
was when they put the updated version online, and then like I have been denying, they asked me what I want printed, and I'm not printing the development code because I keep hearing a new one's coming, and the cost is astronomical to print, I think I get 18 of them to hand out. So we put an extra, we talked about it, put an extra cushion in there because we are so close and projected that we are gonna get that new development code this year. So at the end of this year, they will print and bind those copies and send them to me, and I will actually have the hard copies. But that cost is like $5,000 or $6,000. And they maintain the online version as well.
And something like this where we don't have an exact cost right now, you want to kind of over budget a little bit, so there's no issues when that invoice comes in.
And one last one. The equipment and furnishings, President, are you gonna get me a new chair that doesn't squeak like hell?
I was gonna say, any leftover money I can lobby the mayor.
Yeah.
I think they call these chairs vintage. So I did have plans on, since there's a lot of change. Mayor, I may have mentioned it to you, and I've talked to Mr. Heidick. I would love to get some new chairs, but it doesn't make sense for council just to buy them since the court uses them. So I was gonna talk to each body, see about splitting costs. I know you've been saying something for a while. I could have went to either body before, but you may not even be in this building. There's a lot of things up in here, so. But eventually, not so much in this budget, but I would like to see it in this budget. Trying to figure out the cost for some new chairs or something.
The clerk could use a new printer, just saying.
You know, I get some stuff. Until then, I'll have to somehow figure out how to, I'll have to drill a hole in it. Where you do.
That's all I have.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll turn it over to our safety director to go over safety and HR and civil service. Her safety director's budget starts tab 4, page 55.
Okay. So like noted, the mayor had noted, if you'll see for personal expenses, for services, that my salary as well is broken out amongst different departments. Really not much of a change, just your normal for the percentage increase that we're getting this year. If you go down to operations and maintenance, there's basically 2 changes. You'll see increase in Swisscom, the dispatch contract. That's because Copley is supposed to be leaving. They don't have an exact date yet. It keeps getting pushed forward, so they will be here longer in the year. And then increases in the cost of IT.
Quick question, you said Copley's leaving. Are they paying now or?
They're still paying. They gave a notice that they would be here till March. The county is not ready for them yet, so we don't have a definite date yet. So they're still paying as normal. So since they're still paying, this budget amount should be adequate.
Would that be when they leave?
For when they
Covers.
leave, yeah, we have budgeted for when they leave, yes. Any other questions about the safety budget? No? Okay. Let's go back. Let's go to civil service. That is page 52. So civil service, the salary, a portion of that. So Michelle has a dual role. She's the civil service secretary and she's the HR coordinator. So that's part of her salary. And then you'll go down to professional services and you'll see that that's where the increase is. Last year I had budgeted for promotional exams. Police did not have any promotional exams last year, so that's why all that budgeted amount was not spent. Moving forward, I went ahead and put that money back in again in case there is a promotional exam. So we do have professional services for civil service, just so you're aware, includes all the costs of entrance exams and promotional exams. And I try to forecast and figure out how many they're going to be. Can't always be accurate. You don't know who's going to leave, but based on retirement and things like that, I'm basing on having 11 entrance exams and 4 promotional. Any questions about the civil service budget? Okay. So then moving to human resources, that is on page 56. Again, above is salary broken up, that is broken to other departments, so that's why it's only a portion. Going down to operations and maintenance, you will see professional services, you'll see a big change there, and the reason is we use Retzel for our labor consultant, and this year we have negotiations for 4 contracts basically, so I just try and prepare for the cost of that.
Those are starting at the end of the year,
They will begin at the end of the year, yes.
October, November.
Well, yes, it's supposed to start 60 days from the end of the year. So we'll start meeting hopefully at the very beginning of November. Any questions about the human resources budget? Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll have Jeremy, the finance director. Not sure if
Page 53. I'll keep it short and sweet. So, just the top portion of that budget is just the contractual obligations for wages for my department. You'll notice the big increase is going to be to our professional services. So this past, well, actually it wasn't this past year, but it was just a month or so ago. The server that houses our software program, that we use, our accounting program, payroll, utility billing, all that, it was becoming outdated. We were running out of memory, we were running out of hard drive space. So we had to look at moving it to the cloud. A couple advantages to the cloud is being able to have it access anywhere. If the pandemic would strike again and we would have to work from home or something, easily accessible from the web on whatever computer. So we moved it there. Also, all the like maintenance and everything, and even if some sort of emergency strikes, be able to recover that data a lot easier and quicker. So we moved it to the cloud. That's part of the increase in cost. Also, the increase in cost. Still looking at a cloud-based budgeting solution. As much as I'm sure you guys love these binders with the and that, I want to have you guys use your tablets and send you guys PDFs of the budget document. Just a little cleaner, a little nicer. Not only that, this is a giant Excel workbook with many, many formulas, to where if you change one number in one place, or a formula in one place, it could be throwing the formula off in multiple places. So it's a lot of having to go back and check every single tab to make sure we're not messing up a formula somewhere in this budget workbook. So having a cloud-based solution, just easier to be able to track what departments are doing what. Are they going in and doing their budget like we asked them to? Being able to do it anywhere, once again, being able to do it anywhere. And not only that, maybe make it a little more colorful and nicer looking than what we currently have. So I'm still looking at that. I'm budgeting for highest side. There's 3 different companies I'm dealing with on this, demoing their product, getting prices, and this is for the highest cost. That doesn't mean they're going to be the best solution. So just going from there. Other than that, you'll notice that software maintenance is up a little bit more for maintenance with the cloud. Professional services only used $500 last year. Have it at $4,000. I still like to get to some training seminars. One of these years, I keep telling everyone I'm going to get to the one in June. It's a week-long conference. Just a bad time of year, really, because that's when the audits also due. So we're trying to finish up the audit, and me going away for a week, it's just bad timing, but one of these years I will get there. And then just bumped up office supplies just a little bit, just for the main fact the cost of everything's just going up, just to have a little bit of cushion there, just in case of breaks down or something, we have the money to replace it, so. Any questions?
Thank you. Sorry, Director, just real fast. What was that software, the name of that software you said you were a vendor?
The three of them?
Yeah.
So our software vendor that we're currently using is called Software Solutions. The program's called Visual Intelligence Portfolio, or VIP. That's the program we're currently using for our accounting software. The things that I'm looking at for the cloud-based budgeting solution is Gravity, ClearGov, and OpenGov.
All right. Save the best for last. All right, so we're going to start with Service Director Budget, tab 4, page 51. Personnel Services stayed the same pretty much from last year to this year. I still have some tuition, education reimbursement on there, which is tuition reimbursement. I graduate in August, so next year that should come up for there. I'm not planning on going back to school anymore. Professional services, we do building security, pavement management, siren testing, all those annual essentials out of my professional services. And then I believe everything else is pretty much a push, same from previous year to this year. Any questions on that? Next budget is going to be information systems. That's page 57, tab 4, page 57. So again, personnel services pretty much stayed the same from last year to this year. And then everything else, for the most part, you'll see the repair and maintenance. We budgeted $70,000 last year. We only used 12. We were actually intending on migrating the emails from our network server base to a cloud-based, kind of similar to VIP. That didn't happen, but you'll see that we budgeted this year more, and it is currently being done. Swisscom started with Copley. Copley's a smaller community. They're doing their migration, and then I believe Barberton's next, if I remember correctly when Nick gave me the schedule the last time. So with that comes an annual fee, but it's a more secure platform. I believe that it's better, is what I'm told. I'm not an IT guy. Justin might have a little better handle on our internet or our email, but I believe we're moving in the right direction with that. And then again, with that comes some switch changing. So some of your equipment and that kind of stuff, you'll see those minor equipment changes in price. Any questions with IS? Yes, sir.
This is not regarding. I guess it would be regarding the budget, but somewhere we had budget talks that there was money needed or wanted for a weather station. Do you recall that?
So that is in the stormwater.
Okay.
So that's something that Caroline monitors.
I was going to ask, did we get it?
We did.
Okay.
It was reflected last year in last year's budget in the 510 account. It, I believe, has been installed on the roof now that we've got a new roof.
Okay.
So I can follow up though and let you know next week.
Will do. I'll get with you. I wanted to see if it was publicly accessible data.
Okay. I'll have.
But I'll
yeah. Caroline would be able to answer
Sure.
all of those questions. She's got river monitor. She's got weather monitor.
Yeah.
She's got you name it. She monitors it. Any other questions? Move on to the next one is the building maintenance fund, page 58, tab 4. So with building maintenance, so you'll see in the personnel services, so we actually last year added a handyman back to the building. So he's paid partially out of building maintenance funds. Lee does a great job. You know, Lee's one of the driving forces behind all the new lights in here, all of the just the upkeep on the building, new paints, new stuff around the place. With that, I think everything else is pretty standard. There wasn't really any fluctuations. We did replace, so in the repair and maintenance supply line, you'll notice that we spent quite a bit last year. Some of that was finalization of the roof systems and just little things that came up with replacing a roof on an old building. There's things that are opened up that you don't expect, so we have to take care of. And we also replaced half of a boiler system in the basement. This year, we budgeted to finish the other half of the boiler. So we're currently running on one high efficiency and one 1980s boiler right now. We will replace the second half with the funds that are reflected here in the budget. So with that, is there any question? Yes, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Director. When you talk about the boilers and all that with the costs here, are the courts kicking in any money towards any of these?
Good question. And yes, we did, but I believe it was a major elevator repair. So we do work back and forth. This past year, they helped out on, we had to replace all 5 cables in the elevator. That was a substantial cost. That was something that they definitely kicked in on. With this fund, I mean, Bob's always willing to work with us with replacing and repairing and doing that around the building. So there is going to be some of their cost in this.
Thank you.
Sir. Anything else? I'm going to call it quits there, and we will resume any of my other budgets next time. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Is that all the budgets?
For tonight, yeah.
Okay. I'd like to, is there anything from council members before we hop over? Anything from department heads? I did mention about the February 20th meeting. It's on a Tuesday. And with that, mayor's report.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be quick here. Change for Change will be at the Hungarian Club benefiting the Barberton Rotary on February 23rd. We did meet with the new executive director of the Barberton Community Foundation last week. He's been in Barberton for quite a while, Josh Gordon. If you don't know him, I think he's going to be reaching out to council members. I do want to thank the Barberton Fire IAFF, Barberton, and everyone else who volunteered or participated in the Esther Ryan Shoe Fund Spaghetti Dinner last week. Esther Ryan was a great woman who she had a mission to collect shoes, and that kind of transferred into socks as well. And so her foundation has been moving forward since the late 70s or early 80s. So thank you everybody who turned out for that and was a part of it. So, it was brought up about the 4 new police cruisers. In receiving these 4 cruisers, it's really been a test of patience over the years. And I could go into the long story of all that, but I won't. I do want to thank the law director, the finance director, the chief of police, and all the officers involved in the roller coaster ride that it was to get to where we are today with 4 new cruisers. Sorry about that. Reps from SUMA will be here next Tuesday to present to City Council about the sale, and then to answer any questions from City Council. And then just lastly, we'll continue with budget presentations next week, so please forward any questions you have on what was presented tonight or anything else, whether it's being presented next Tuesday or not. If you have any questions, please feel free to send those to us and we'll get them answered. Did I respond to your question about the service director's, yes, his professional services?
Oh, it was just for any new counselors that saw it, that sometimes the 20 and 21, or the 21 budget, 2021, because of COVID, sometimes the numbers can be skewed.
Yep, Jared asked specifically about his, how it kind of went up, and I know
it was with the sirens.
Yeah.
It was about sirens.
I mean, I get about 100 emails a day, so I just want to make sure I responded. So, so yes, get any questions you have to us as soon as possible, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So that's all I have.
Do you have the lineup for next week?
Lineup.
I don't know what it's called.
Yes, I'll send this out in an email as well.
Okay.
I have police and fire. So law I had scheduled for next week. That obviously got changed. IT. So I'll check and see. move some other ones up there as well. So
Okay.
at least police and fire.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Mayor, I do have one last thing.
Yeah.
I completely forgot to ask about this. We're seeing that there is money allocated on the House bill for the Justice Center, a grant they're talking about. Could you provide any specifics on that application that the city of Barberton put in for that? What was it for? It's all, because all it says is Justice Center.
Yeah, what I can recall off the top of my head is just an explanation of what's going on. So a new city building or a renovated city building, a renovated Justice Center, kind of need for that, and then everything that goes into it. So whether it's the infrastructure remodeling of both buildings or it's the cabling and things of that nature. So very general. Response, yeah. So basically, there's a new fund. The state was about $700 million. They split it in half, 350 to the House side, 350 to the Senate side. The Senate applications are not due yet. That's closer to April, but we intend to apply for $5 million. That's what we asked for on the House side for the Senate side. So there's an opportunity to get more money towards this project.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right, thank you.
All right. Nothing else? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Mr. President. I motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mrs. Hager.
I second that motion.
All right. Motion was made by Mr. Heidick and seconded by Mrs. Hager to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Didn't think so. This meeting is adjourned at 8:02 p.m.
Well, we could have gone longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's early.